I'm Ganeet from Canon Network, and today I have with me Mr. Ujjal Dosanjh. He's a former BC Premier and a federal cabinet minister. Tell us about this conference and what can Canadians take away from that?
Well, I think it's important that conferences like this are being now organized. I think this is the first ever that I have seen which focuses on questions of extremism and terrorism within sort of more recent immigrant communities that haven't been here for a long time, and then brings communities that are oppressed by fanaticism and extremism, like the Jewish community, the Hindus and the Sikhs, together to talk about some of the issues that affect them.
One of the two main partners of this event was Canada India Foundation at Tasveeq, which is a Jewish advocacy group. Why should we have an event that brings in two communities together? Like, why is it so important?
Well, I think the fact is that the Jewish community faces discrimination and extremism in Canada. The supporters of Hamas, run around the streets in Canada in the name of democracy, and they spread terror and anger. I don't think that that's very productive or healthy for Canadian society. Khalistanis are essentially a mirror image of what what they do in the first place. And therefore, I think there is that thing that connects them, which is that we as minority communities are suffering from elements of extremism which operate in very similar fashion across this country. And the politicians on all of these things are relatively silent. There are very few politicians who either have the backbone or have the inclination to speak on these issues.
Why do you think there's less of that in political mainstream, and how can that change?
Politicians in a democracy, one of their main objectives is to get more votes. So you don't want to make people angry. And in the process of not wanting to make anybody angry, they actually lose all principles that they ever came into politics with. So the question that most politicians need to face is, are you in it for winning? Or are you in it for standing up for the principles that first brought you into politics? And one hopes that almost everyone that goes into elected politics has some principles. I want to assume that they do.
What's your take on the current environment of Canada-India relations?
Well, I think I always believe that Mr. Trudeau mishandled the situation. If the allegations Canada makes are true, there are other ways of dealing with it. The United States has dealt with that issue in a different way. Canada could have followed the same. Mr. Trudeau, in an irresponsible fashion, catapulted this issue into the stratosphere, therefore destroyed the relationship between Canada and India. The allegations are serious against India. But, if you are friendly countries and democracies, you can work on multiple tracks at the same time. You could be dealing with Niger on one hand and dealing with the rest of the relationship on the other hand in an honest, forthright fashion, but not in a fashion that aggravates a relationship that's important to hundreds of thousands of people who have origins, millions who have origins in India.
In your speech, you were talking about the Canadian values, which is what brings people together. What are those Canadian values that everybody here you think are standing up for?
Canadian values are values of allowing people to live peacefully in society, to be able to live productive lives, not to threaten, intimidate, or overpower anybody or prevent anybody from speaking, and not to engage in hate speech. And much of the speech that I hear from the Khalistanis or the anti-Jewish demonstrators is usually hate speech. And I'm afraid that I've kind of given up on it, but why would the police, the RCMP and the police forces and the law enforcement officials in general, why would they not prosecute hate speech, such as when they have AK-47s with words written on them, such as assassination wanted, and down below they would have Indian diplomats in case of the Khalistanis. Now, that's clearly hate speech. Why would they not even make a beginning in terms of wanting to prosecute them?
And I think that's a really falls upon our politicians, because Jewish people also face the same problem. We have an imam in Victoria who basically wants to annihilate all the Jews, or that's what he talks about. Why are our politicians hesitant to be obvious hate speeches?
Politicians' main function is to win elections. They want to antagonize the least number of people. But I say to people, when you go into politics and you win, please don't lose your principles and then have some backbone to express them publicly.
Thank you for talking to us, Ujjwal.
Thank you.